first week I started working at the cemetery, I saw someone standing by my wife's grave.
But when I got closer, there was no one there. And that was the least frightening part of it all. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, in a house that always smelled like sawdust and wood stain. My dad ran a custom furniture shop, built everything by hand: cabinets, bed frames, dining tables. I grew up right beside him, learning the trade before I even finished high school. We weren't rich, but we never asked anybody for anything. God provided, and we worked for the rest. For years, every dollar we saved went somewhere else. A hospital bill, a busted engine, something always came up. My older brother Derek needed money to get married, and every time we got close, life had other plans. That's just how it goes when you're working class in the South. Then 2002 came. My dad took early retirement. The payout landed, we sold the shop, and Derek finally had his wedding. I stood at that reception smiling, genuinely happy for him. But in the back of my mind, one thought kept circling. When it's my turn, where is the money going to come from? That's when I started working for other people. And let me tell you, nothing drains you faster than building someone else's dream with your own hands while yours collect dust on a shelf. I couldn't save a dime. Couldn't even buy decent clothes. Every paycheck was already spent before I cashed it. Then, in 2004, my cousin called. Said there was serious money in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. High-end yacht manufacturing, custom boats for private clients. They needed skilled woodworkers, and the pay was almost 3 times what I was making in Memphis. Housing was included. Meals were covered. It sounded too good to be true. But I had the Army ahead of me first, so I made a plan. Before I shipped out, I'd take an evening class at the community college to sharpen my skills. Then, after service, I'd head straight to Florida. That plan changed the moment I walked into that classroom. Her name was Lily. I don't know how else to say it. She walked in and the whole room got quieter. Not loud, quiet, just still. She had this warmth about her, this calm, like she was genuinely interested in every single person she talked to. 3 months of class together, and every Tuesday and Thursday, I found myself thinking about what she might say next. But I had nothing to offer. No house, no savings, a one-way ticket to basic training, and a dream about building boats in Florida. So I kept my feelings to myself, right up until the day before I left. We met up one last time. I looked at her and just said it. "Will you wait for me?" She smiled, and this girl who had kept her distance the entire semester stepped forward and hugged me. It was the first time a woman had ever done that. I floated through the whole bus ride to the processing center. I did my service outside Atlanta. Every free moment I was planning. Come back, see Lily, get to Florida, build something real. And that's exactly what happened. I came home, we picked up right where we left off, except now it was real. Within a few months, I was on the road to Fort Lauderdale, got hired at a high-end yacht workshop. The conditions were night and day from Memphis. Better pay, better equipment, a bunk room for the workers, meals covered. I sent money home and saved everything else. 2 years later, I drove back to Memphis and asked Lily's father if I could marry his daughter. He said yes. We had a wedding. Not flashy, but ours. Rented a house, picked out every piece of furniture ourselves. Everything was finally falling into place. The only catch was work. Fort Lauderdale was where the money was, so I went back. 6 weeks later, Lily called. "Marcus, we're having a baby." I worked harder than I ever had in my life after that call. My foreman, a gruff older man everyone called Big Earl, noticed. "Boy, what got into you?" he asked. I told him. He laughed, slapped me on the shoulder, and said, "Go buy that child something nice." 8 months of pregnancy, and I'd seen Lily only in photos. She'd text me ultrasound pictures, and I'd pull them out during breaks and just stare. Big Earl finally told me to go home. Your wife is about to have that baby. Get on the highway." I threw my bag in the truck and drove through the night. 18 hours straight. I planned the whole surprise the entire drive. What I'd say, what I'd bring, how I'd walk through that door. At 5 in the morning, pulling into Memphis, my phone rang. It was my mom. She was crying. "Come home, baby. Come straight home." I called my dad. No answer. Called Lily's mother. Phone was off. Nobody picked up. I already knew. When I turned onto our street, the house had scorch marks crawling up the brick and every window was dark. My brother Derek and Lily's brother were standing in the driveway. When they saw me, they walked toward me with their arms out. I don't remember anything after that. I woke up in a hospital with my parents sitting beside me and a sedative drip in my arm. Lily and her mother had both died in a house fire. Lily was 8 months pregnant. We buried them together. Lily and the son we would have named James, buried in the same plot, in the same Memphis cemetery where her family had laid their people to rest for 3 generations. Grief is a strange thing. People say, time heals. That hasn't been my experience. Time just changes what you're able to fake. For months, I couldn't work. My hands, these hands that had built furniture since I was 14, wouldn't cooperate. I'd make measurements wrong, cut angles that didn't match. I'd quit jobs before they fired me because I could read the look on the foreman's face. I went back to Fort Lauderdale, damaged a piece of equipment that cost the shop thousands. They were too kind to say anything. They just handed me an envelope with 2 weeks' pay and wished me luck. I was nobody again. Worse than nobody. I was a ghost, walking around in a living man's body. An old friend from high school had gone into city politics. He'd heard what happened through the grapevine. He called one afternoon, no pity in his voice, just calm and straightforward, and offered me a position at the Parks and Public Works Department. I wasn't good with people anymore. He could see that. A few weeks in, he came by quietly and said, "There's an opening at Riverside Cemetery. Overnight groundskeeper and security. You'd mostly be alone. Think you can handle that?" I said yes. My first day on the job, I found out my assignment was Riverside Cemetery, the same cemetery where Lily and James were buried. I walked straight to their graves before I even clocked in. I stood there a long time. It was the first time I'd visited since the funeral. I'd been too scared, too guilty, like I'd failed them by being 3 states away when it happened. My training partner was a younger guy named Tyler, nervous energy, always talking to fill the silence. We'd rotate shifts with the overnight crew. About a week into nights, I was doing a perimeter walk. We were told to watch for vandals, metal thieves, trespassers. I had my flashlight out. In the tree line, I saw someone standing completely still. I killed my light and moved closer. Whoever it was, disappeared. Not ran. Disappeared. Like a shape dissolving into the dark. I searched for 10 minutes. Nothing. The following week, I spotted the figure again, this time from inside the security booth through the window. I grabbed my flashlight and ran outside. Tyler followed behind me. Again, it vanished before we could get close. Then I noticed something else. In the far corner of the grounds, a freshly dug, empty plot. I walked toward it. My heart was hammering in my chest. And right at the edge of that grave, something was there. A shape, a figure, dark like it was wrapped in shadow. Pale face, eyes that caught no light. I didn't look back. I ran. There was an older groundskeeper on the overnight rotation named Raymond. Everyone called him Old Ray, late 60s, white hair, face like carved wood. He'd been working nights at Riverside for over 15 years, by choice. I told him what I'd seen. He didn't flinch, didn't raise an eyebrow. "Yeah," he said slowly. "I've seen it too. Saw it when you first arrived. Knew you'd seen it as well." I asked him what it was. He thought for a long moment. "Grave watchers," he said. That's what I call them. I don't know the theology, but I've watched them over good plots and bad plots, and they don't behave the same way. He told me about a con man they'd buried the year before, a preacher who'd used his reputation to exploit vulnerable people, families, children. The night after his funeral, the ground around his plot shook like something was raging underneath. Old Ray heard sounds he couldn't describe. He never went near that section alone again. Then he told me about a 14-year-old girl, 2 years of cancer treatment, passed quietly. Sweet kid. Her grave had a presence too, but it was calm, peaceful, protective. I think they're assigned, Old Ray said simply. Whatever you believe about what comes after, I think something watches over the dead. And the way they watch, it reflects who the person was. I asked him what was watching over Lily. He looked at me for a long time. That's something you're going to have to figure out yourself. That night, I dreamed of Lily. She was standing at her own grave, calm and still. But beside the headstone stood the dark figure, and she was uneasy, not terrified, just troubled by its presence. When I woke up, something about the dream was wrong. I replayed it 3 times before I caught it. Lily wasn't pregnant. Her stomach was flat. I didn't know what to make of it. But I went to the grave that afternoon and noticed something I hadn't seen before. The bottom section of her headstone had a faint blank space below her name and dates, like something was missing. That night on shift, I kept watching the area near Lily's plot. There was a row of freshly dug empty graves nearby, 10 plots, all prepared and waiting. The figure appeared again, standing at the very last one. I walked toward it. Tyler was calling my name from behind. I couldn't hear him. I was locked in, moving toward that final plot, past Lily's grave. Then my foot hit loose earth at the edge. I fell into the empty grave. When I came to, I was lying at the bottom, looking up at the dark sky. And at the edge of the hole, the figure was looking directly down at me. Then I heard Tyler's voice calling my name from across the yard. The figure was gone. Tyler hauled me out, half panicking, and yelled at me for a solid 5 minutes. I almost laughed, but the truth was my hands were shaking and I couldn't stop them. The next morning, I told Old Ray about the dream, about Lily not being pregnant in it. He got quiet. Then he said, "Did you ever put the baby's name on the headstone?" I hadn't. James had never had a birth certificate, never had a name in any official record. He'd been buried without one. He was a person, Old Ray said quietly. A real soul. He deserves to be remembered. I called a monument company that week, had them add 1 line to the headstone. James Webb, beloved son, gone before hello. I stood at that grave after the work was done, and I cried for the first time since the funeral. Not the hollow, empty kind of crying I'd been doing for 2 years. Something that actually moved through me and came out the other side. That night, I went in for my shift. And when I walked past Lily's grave on my way to the booth, I stopped cold. The plot right next to hers, the empty one I had fallen into, was filled. Someone had been buried there overnight. I didn't know who, but something told me the answer mattered more than I was ready for. I walked to the records office to find out the name, and what I learned next changed everything I thought I understood about that cemetery, about those figures, and about why Lily had been watching her own grave in my dream without her baby in her arms.